I good? Well, always a special day. I think this is the culmination of their careers, right? Last official event in our facilities. I think a lot of guys helped themselves today. Obviously, PB was the only guy we had in the combine, so he'd kind of already established his times. I know he's going to throw out there in a little bit with one of the neat rules that gets to be a part of this is, right, like we have Cole, we have several offensive guys that want to get a look, and back in the day, you couldn't have your current players work with them. So the NFL kind of made a decision I think it was about 7-8 years ago, that allowed your current roster to work with guys. So to have Luke out there, I think Hank Beatty, Malik, I think Josh McCray is going to be out there as well to throw with those guys. Is a pretty awesome experience for some of those younger guys as well. So super excited for them. I think we have 30 of 32 NFL teams out there today. So a lot of representation. Hopefully some good things will happen for them in the future.
Obviously, Ryan Mead's been an underdog story, but having a good day. Just what has he shown you in his time here, and what are you hearing from him?
Yeah, so I always I talked to the scouts earlier today, and I kind of give what we call one. In the NFL, they have what's called one-liners. You just say in an abbreviated version what you think of this player. And the one thing I said about Ryan is, he's going to test extremely well today, probably better than you think. But the things that he brings to the table have nothing to do with what you measure, right? Like his accountability, his football IQ, his awareness, the four-core player he is on special teams. Jake Hansen had a lot more probably statistical value coming out, but he's kind of that, I told Jake when he was leaving here, I said, bro, you're going to be the second string Will, the second string Sam, the second string Mike, and you're going to play on all four cores. And he just signed a pretty good contract the other day with Texas. I think Ryan's in that same flex position as a linebacker as well.
Those defensive linemen, you've had a lot of them get to the NFL through the UDFA route or late in the draft.
Yeah.
What do you see out of T-Raw and Dennis? What can they bring to an NFL?
And first with Briggs, only had him for a year, but I was very impressed. I think his best value is from a 6 to a 3. Brings a lot of experience, a lot of football IQ, awareness. I think it'll take the right team. I think he'll probably go more to a 4-down defensive line. He has some 3-down value, which we ran him in and did some good things. T-Raw is still a work in progress. I know. He's obviously declared for the NFL draft, but we're still got an appeal in for him, so we still have we're holding out hope for a Hail Mary there at the end to get him back with us. But if the NFL is his next path, I think he's probably earned his way into an NFL camp, and I think he'll take full advantage of any opportunity he gets.
Is there anything you can share about that process or how you're?
It's fully underway, and the NCAA, the way it all works, I just kind of wish it all had a reason. T-Rod played in 5 games in 1 year that he should have been allowed to redshirt in. It was a turmoil for him, what he was going through, but more importantly, they played in 5 games. I believe 4 of the 5 games he played less than 10 snaps. It's just they didn't mean to. When we actually took T-Raw, he was listed in the NCAA record books as only playing in 3 games, so we thought we had 1 more year with him. And then we realized there was a bookkeeping error, so we filed a waiver off of that. It was totally an error, right? But the kid shouldn't be penalized for that, in my opinion. So we've written a pretty detailed report, and hopefully NCAA will require it and follow suit.
Do you get excited about how full this day could be a year from now with all the guys that
you somebody else asked me that. I tend to worry about tomorrow. We got our practice number 2. I do know, I remember seeing earlier, I shared with a couple of you, that there was a tweet that showed a number of schools that had 10 or more players at the combine, and one of them was the team that we played in the bowl game. South Carolina, I believe, had 11 players at the combine. Well, we have 1 at the combine, and he didn't even play in our game, right? So to see that and to know how many good players we have returning, what the NFL thinks of them is something that will come. But I am excited after our first practice yesterday, probably as clean, as disciplined, as good a practice number 1 as we've had since I've been here. My issue as a head coach is I got to find a lot of things to get after him and kind of remind him of where we need to be. So practice 1 is behind us, but practice 2 is very important.
It seems like a big day today for Zakari as well. How did he grow? He's been around forever. How did you see him grow in his year?
His dad just grabbed me and just, again, expressed his gratitude for us, right, and what we were able to do for him. So I think it was a 2-way street. He gave us a lot, but I think we gave him a lot. Just the way we practice, I told him, everybody gets confused sometimes when you have conversations that are difficult to hear. Sometimes people take those as the wrong way, but I think you grow more from uncomfortable conversations than comfortable ones. So I remember bringing him in and talked to him about ball security after he got it punched out against Kansas, right, and just kind of showed him the things I had learned about him by watching him at practice as well as on film. And from that point, he had 0.0 ball issues, right? That 3rd down catch he made in the bowl game was about as critical gets. Just I think a kid that plays big in big moments and Obviously loved having him last year. I wish we could have him for one more, but what he installed in his program, what he showed some of those other guys as a playmaker is pretty cool.
When NFL teams come through here, I'm assuming maybe they look at Illinois differently than they did your first year for pro. So what do you hope they see out of not necessarily your program, but the guys in particular about what they're getting?
Well, first I told that group today, we had 30 teams in there. I said, hey, I don't mind you taking our players, but stop taking our coaches. Right? Like I don't mind the player aspect, but it does reflect, I think, on what we've built, what we've done. Not only our time here, but I'm also very aware that, you know, there's several guys here in the building today evaluating players that I've known for, you know, over 20 years now, and what we've been able to put on the field during college and the way it transcends into the NFL is doesn't go unnoticed by those people. I was talking to someone literally about 2 weeks ago after the NFL Combine, and we were talking about a DB in next year's class, right? And they said, well, and he's an Illinois DB, that'll add a round or two to his draft value. And I kind of like stood back and like, holy cow, right? But that's what's grown, right? And that's what's been built. Even before I got here, you know, I look at, you know, there's a lot of, but Buckus and what he was able to do here as an O-line coach. The last five guys he recruited all playing in the NFL, right? And Luke is a tremendous coach, and you know, regardless of what happened when I got here, the fact the way they could evaluate and bring in DBs. That year, look at Nate Hobbs. He was a kid that there was nobody in that first class that I tried to recruit harder than Nate Hobbs. I could see it on film. I could see what he was able to do, and to see him get rewarded now the other day with a 4-year, $48 million deal shows how good a football player he is, right? We just have tried to manifest it and make it reality.
Part of the evaluation process for these scouts is conversations with you and your staff.
Mm-hmm.
What is the dynamic of those conversations? How do you have to strike a balance between kind of selling your players and conversations about?
Well, the truth will always set you free, right? So I've never wavered on that. You know, I think there's obviously times to accentuate what you see and things to always try to devalue. But I've always said, you know, whether it's recommending players or recommending coaches, I'm not a guy, you know, if I've had somebody that's worked for me or I've crossed paths with that I don't feel I would hire, I'll tell somebody that, right? On the same thing with the NFL, I'm not going to sugarcoat, or if they ask me something that I know the reality of what it is, like I'm not going to shy away from that. But I would tell you, if you come through this program and you survive and advance and do the things, there's not going to be a lot of hard conversations to have, right? Our guys usually, they may not be as fast as you want, they may not be able to jump as high as you want, they may not be able to you know, do some things that the paper says you can't do, but our guys usually can overcome a lot, and I think that's easy to sell.
Bret, you've had several wide receivers get to the NFL. How much is that?
How much what?
How much is that wide receiver, like growing that in the NFL, sending guys in? How much is that
Yeah,
happening recruiting?
you know, I hadn't really thought. It's only been one at a time, right? But if you go back, obviously, to Casey Washington, to Isaiah, and now Pat, right? I think 3 different receivers, 3 different body types, but the results have been the same. And there was a quote from Pat Bryant that I shared not only with Coach Stepp, but with our staff, just like, hey, we could have the greatest design, X's and O, we could have the best timed call, but the power of the mind is very, very hard to beat. And Pat Bryant, when someone asked him at the Combine what was the jump of his senior year, and he said, my coach Stepp, told me every day I was one of the best players in college football, and all I want to do is every day is show him why that's true. And like, Pat didn't grow any taller. You know, he got better with tank in the weight room and certain skill set, but his confidence level went to a different place. And I think that's the value we're all trying to catch as we walk in this building every day. If we can capture the mind as much as we catch the heart and put them in a position to be successful, the sky's the limit.
I should ask you about J-Mo. We always hear about J-Mo's attention to detail,
Yeah.
and obviously a couple defensive line. What makes him as good as he is? And he mentioned that detail is kind of honed even as a GA with you in Madison.
This will sum it up. So every coach has a position room, right? And in that position room, you have a set of chairs. In that room, you have a set of chairs, and you sit as a coach and you stand as a coach and teach, right? And I've always told our coaches that teaching room that you have, that's your classroom, and you need to set that room in the best way possible to teach your players. So before we start a spring or before we start a fall, I have them design a seating chart that puts people in the positions they want to while they learn from them in the classroom. And it doesn't shock me, but I remember 3 years ago, I brought the paper in, everybody hands that sheet to me, how they're gonna seat their room individually. And then I brought in J-Mo's sheet and had him explain to the room why he put players in the position he did. And a lot of times it's you want your leaders up front, or you want an older player next to a younger player, or you have a player that learns well next to a guy that doesn't learn well, or you have a guy that takes good notes versus. JMO had 3 left-handers, so he put guys in a position to take great notes because they were left-handed players. All desks are designed for right-handed players. The fact that he would gather that information, process it, and put them in a seat to have their best note-taking skills available, literally everybody in the room just kind of stopped, right? And it may sound like a simple thing to the outside world, but for me as a coach, it showed the detail of what he learned, right? Now this week, or 2 weeks ago when we were sitting down there were 3 coaches that made reference that they had a left-handed player in their meeting room and they wanted to make sure they put him on the left-hand side so he could take notes better than on the right-handed desk. So just the attention to detail that JMO has is unprecedented.